it's going to be really hard to bring peace, especially when, you know, we know Israel's end game. We know it. And their end game is to control all of Palestine.
Just go in there. We need to pull the people that are remaining in Gaza, pull those people out, resettle them, level Gaza. I hate to be this way, but I guess you just have to give it to Israel, or they're just going to keep on keeping on, and we're going to be right back in the same mess years later.
Are we saying that the Palestinians are the ones who should go because they're the weaker party, because they're the party that's been losing the most, because they have the least international support? That's why they must go? I don't think that's right to say. Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out the We Have Issues podcast again. I'm Chris.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Carvell.
And today we are going to be talking about the ongoing situation that is occurring in Gaza. 2 years ago, on October 7th, 2023, Hamas carried out an attack on the nation of Israel. It was the first large-scale invasion of Israeli territory since the 1948 war. And in that initial attack, around 250 Israeli citizens were captured to be used as hostages in discussions with the state of Israel. This has deteriorated now into a 2-year conflict as of today, where there have been hundreds of thousands of casualties. There have been around 82,000 people dead on the Palestinian side, and around 1,000 Israelis have died as a result of this ongoing conflict. A lot has transpired in the last 2 years on this. Do one of you guys want to tell us what your opinions are on what's going on?
As we all know, there's been a lot of bloodshed that's going on in Israel right now, in the Gaza Strip in Palestine. And this bloodshed has caused a lot of activists to come out, especially from the West, where we are condemning a lot of what Israel is doing. But there's also a lot of people that are taking Israel's side. As we know, the attack in Israel by Hamas, that the capture of a lot of Israel citizens, I think over 1,000 people were killed that day. A lot of hostages were taken, and a lot of families were devastated. And as a response, Netanyahu, he has directed the military to bombard a lot of what's in Gaza City. And that has resulted to around, we were talking about this, around 70,000 people dead. That's 10% of the population of Gaza City. And we know that this is something that is definitely something the international community should care about. Something when you lose so many people, especially a lot of women and children, there is a lot of women, children, families being displaced. There is something that the international community should do about this. But at the same time, we do understand the threats that Israel is constantly going through. The question that a lot of us Americans are having is, the threats that Israel have, does it justify what they're doing right now? And a lot of people are saying, no, that doesn't justify. And a lot of people are backing Israel in total. And this is something we as American have to talk more about to understand, because we are the ones that are supplying Israel with weapons. We are the ones that are giving the go-ahead to Israel and allowing them to bombard Gaza City. And yes, Hamas is a terrorist organization. However, as we understand it and know, Hamas is inside of Gaza, and we don't know who's the enemy, who's not. So, and Israelis also have a problem with identifying who's the enemy is not. So their solution is just to bomb everything. So as an American, a citizen, we need to talk more about this. We need to understand, what is it we're doing right and what is it we're doing wrong, and how do we need to go forward? Now, I know today is Sunday, October 5th. Israel is supposedly supposed to have a ceasefire on Gaza, and there's some type of truce that is Donald Trump drew up, that both sides are kind of liking. However, I know that Israel did do some defensive bombing, which I don't know what that means, but President Donald Trump has called them to stop firing, and it's one of those things that we have to see how things develop. We do not know if this peace treaty will last or this ceasefire will last.
Like, I know Trump is master deal maker and 4D chess player and all this kind of stuff, but the thing is, how is he going to pull this off? This has never been pulled off by anyone. This is a conflict, and that's Carvell, you were talking about earlier about how we are, we're kind of stumbling around trying to speak our way through this, and, America needs to talk about this more. The thing is, this has been going on, almost since the beginning of time. Americans don't understand the complexity and the nuance that's behind this conflict that's going on in the Middle East for this long. Our eyes glazed over when Tucker Carlson interviewed Putin, and he took, Russian history back to like the 1500s. So we certainly do not have the cranial capacity to understand this, and I don't even really know that we want to. This is just such a complex history. So with that being said, I don't see this working with people being able to stay in Gaza and Israel being able to remain this two-state solution. I'm to the point where I don't believe that it's going to work. We've got, he wants to rebuild Gaza and invest money in it, but it's an estimated about at this time, it's like $53 billion that it would take in recovery, and probably additional to restart the economy, if what economy there is. So and who's going to pay for that? Because I see in here that there's going to be, upon the acceptance of Donald Trump's this agreement, full aid will be immediately sent into the Gaza Strip. Who the hell's paying for this? My God,
this is actually where one of my strongest opinions on this Gaza peace plan comes into play. Trump wants to basically coup the government of Gaza, which is Hamas. Like, basically, this is a complete and total surrender by Hamas, is what he's demanding.
Right.
For the good, to put this in the best possible light, he wants unconditional surrender by Hamas for the good of the Palestinian people, is how it's being presented. I'm of the opinion that when you are an outside party, you can't speak to what is the best for someone else. The Palestinian people themselves should be the ones making those decisions.
No, I agree with you guys' sentiment about it's going to be really hard. I think you said it too. I think you said it, Matt, that it's going to be hard to find a peace deal, because let's be true. Let's be real for a second. Israel would love to have full control of all of Palestine.
Yep.
And it doesn't make sense to me that they wouldn't want full control. One, because we know that with the location of the Gaza Strip, and the Mediterranean Sea, and anybody that can go over there in Gaza, and they do already control the airspace, the land, and the sea. They do control that already, but what they don't control is the administrative actions of the everyday actions of Gaza City and a lot of Gaza. And Israel would love to have that, and I don't think personally they will stop until they have that, till they have full control over Gaza.
Yep.
It says here on number 16 that Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. That looks and sounds good on paper.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, they're taking away all of Gaza's weapons. How is that going to be enforced?
I hate to concede things to people who I kind of view as being more in the wrong, but what I would do is go in, if there's these terror networks, if there's these tunnel systems that they've constructed, if there truly are arms stores underneath hospitals, schools, and all that, it's too convoluted. Just go in there. We need to pull the people that are remaining in Gaza, pull those people out, resettle them, level Gaza, I hate to be this way, but I guess you just have to give it to Israel, or they're just going to keep on keeping on, and we're going to be right back in the same mess years later. And I mean, there's places that we could resettle and we could rebuild. There's
where?
Let's see here.
Because that's the biggest issue.
Hold on, I know it is, and I wrote some stuff down. So we have 874 million hectares of land undeveloped in Africa. And in Australia, there is 104 million hectares of land that's undeveloped. Those are kind of similar environments. Africa obviously be kind of the preferred choice. That's basically what we did. Is we displaced people and gave Israel a country. So why can't we give a country to the Palestinians?
You can't do that. That's genocide.
How's that genocide?
Population transfers are considered genocide. You are erasing a people from their territory.
You're not erasing them. You're just
because they're not there anymore.
But you have to do something with them. I mean, they're being bombed.
Would it
be genocide to send them to Egypt, because that was the original?
Egypt doesn't want them.
That's my point. So what would be wrong with just being like, look, I mean, because they don't need that much land.
Alternatively, you could just, if Israel doesn't control it anyway, just make Gaza a microstate.
I'm fine with that, but are they going to continue to be attacked by Israel?
See, and that's the issue, right? I mean, because I understand why Israel does not want other countries like around them in such a way, because think about it this way, right? If Gaza were its own state, they could have anybody who they want inside of their own state. They could have terrorists if they decide to, Islamic terrorists if they wanted to. They could have enemies of Israel, and Israel couldn't do anything about it. And we know that in the Middle East, there's a lot of people that wish death upon Israel.
Well,
Israel could do a lot about it. Israel had that situation just happen this past year in Syria. What did they do? They invaded it. If Israel doesn't like the government of a nation, they'll just invade it.
Yeah, and that's another issue, but that could be another topic, because Israel should not be doing this, just bombing Syria or bombing, whatever country. But that's another one, and I don't know enough about that subject. But what I do know, though, is that there was a time before Israel became a state where a lot of Jews, a lot of Muslims, and a lot of Christians lived together in the Middle East, where Israel is currently at, particularly the West Bank. And that's much different now. It's there's no harmony, there's no peace. People don't live together in peace, and it's very easy to say that Israel is the problem in this situation. But if we don't really look at history and we don't really understand the dynamics of everything, it's easy to come to those conclusions, right? And I think that this is one of those subjects where I can have a lot of knowledge and understanding of the situation, but it's completely hard to have a complete opinion on who is right and who is wrong. And one of the reasons is because Hamas and them integrated with the civilians of the city, and you don't know who the enemy is.
Yeah, well, Hamas was funded by Israel. One of the propped up by Israel for I think, I don't remember if it was a direct quote, but they kind of likened having Hamas to being able to control a thermostat to turn up and at their will to control things in control the Palestinians. But I mean, that's good point, Carvell. That's why one of Trump's best quotes ever has been, there's two countries that have been fighting for so long they don't know what the fuck they're doing. He put it perfectly right there. I mean, and that's the situation. And that's why the U.S., I think, should stay out of it. We do have the capabilities to fix this right now, but I don't know how much of that, this intervention, we got this 20-point plan here that you've sent me, Chris. it's just nebulous, and I don't know that this is going to, in the end, this solves anything. Personally, I would rather the United States just say, we're done. We're not funding this anymore. I mean, we sent $18 billion to Israel last year, and we still provide weapons and everything. It might just be time to cut ties, because what's going on? I mean, Carvell, you mentioned it, 70,000 people have been killed, and half of that has been children. And I don't want to see dead Israelis. I don't want to see dead Palestinians. I don't want dead Jews. I don't want dead Muslims. I don't want dead anybody. And it just keeps happening. This is something that keeps rearing its ugly head. It's an ancient tribal conflict, and the U.S. has never solved shit. So I don't know why we can come up with a 20-point plan and think this is going to solve this. We've never been able to fix anything going on in another country. So
Matt, let me ask you a question, just to pick your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned about moving the people, right?
Right.
You think it would be wise to move those people to the West Bank, like in Palestine, since they're both Palestine, but just move them to the West Bank? And do you think that would be a reasonable solution? I mean, a lot of them, I think it's like something around 99% of the people in Gaza are Muslim, Sunni Muslims or something like that. And if you move them to the West Bank, where there's like 80% of them are Sunni Muslim, but they don't have the same issues that they do in Gaza, do you think that would be a better solution?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't want to move them anywhere, but my idea behind moving them would be to get them away from Israel. I mean, it's like two fighting siblings.
Why do the Palestinians have to move away from Israel? Why can't the Israelis move away from the Palestinians? That's the core of the issue, isn't it? That both of these groups mix like oil and water.
Right.
And those are the extremist angles, right? The hard right Israelis and the extremist Palestinians and their allies want the exact same thing, a one-state solution. They both want a one-state solution. It's just who's in that one state is completely different, either all Israeli or all Palestinian. Mm-hmm. And are we saying that the Palestinians are the ones who should go because they're the weaker party, because they're the party that's been losing the most, because they have the least international support? That's why they must go? I don't think that's right to say. I think they shouldn't be forced to do anything. They've been living there for centuries. Mm-hmm. Carvell, on your assertion that just move the Gazans to the West Bank, from what I understand, in my limited understanding of the situation, I'm not an expert, but Gazans and West Bank Palestinians have some differences, have some political differences. From what I understand, naturally, the Gazans tend to lean more towards an extremist mindset, and that would be a radicalizing element that you're introducing into the West Bank.
Well, that has everything to do with Hamas, right?
Well, you have to remember, Hamas is the legitimately elected democratic government of Gaza. Gazans chose Hamas as their leadership. They didn't just come in and take over. They got voted in.
Yep.
So that is an issue. If they were going to do that resettlement, that might be a solution. I would want the houses they get to be the Israeli illegal settlers that have moved into the West Bank, that all of a sudden Israel just starts opening up these little settlements that, because they're Jews there, I guess that's part of us now. Which has slowly over the years been shrinking Palestine more and more and more, which has been completely illegal in the international sphere. But again, everyone turns a blind eye to it because it's Israel doing it, and that's okay. I don't know what the solution to that is, but I can't imagine these massive population transfers. What is there, like 1.5 million people in Gaza?
Yeah, but when you think about it, I mean,
that's the entire city.
Yes, it's a lot of people in the grand scheme. I mean, my God, we can have 12 million people cross the border in 1 year in America, so it's not undoable. The logistics of it can definitely be done. I'm just trying to whatever it takes to stop the killing. And as unfortunate as it is, if that involves getting people, taking them from their homeland and getting them somewhere else where they will be safe and where they actually could redevelop. And that's just like I said earlier, if there really is all these terror cells underground, there's all these tunnel systems, there's all these caches under the ground, under hospitals and schools, the place is just going to have to be leveled anyway. And if we're going to have to start over completely, and if the U.S. is going to some extent bankroll that and fund that, why not start over somewhere else where we don't have this problem, come back up again? Because, and I get what you're saying, Chris, about Palestinians being the weaker side and the ones that are always losing. It's not fair, but even if we rebuilt and redeveloped, what happens when everything that we worked for reestablished these people, when it gets bombed again or something because somebody says, well, they dug more tunnels? So that's how I'm thinking of it. I'm with you guys. I'm at a loss. Right now, the main thing I would be concerned about is getting a ceasefire going, stop the bloodshed, get the hostages back to Israel, release the Gazans that have been detained in Israel, and after that, who knows?
I want to get back to that development of Gaza. So the development plan for Gaza, what they want to promote is the Gaza International Transitional Authority, GITA. This plot ties into Trump's plan for what he is going to do. This is being worked out with the British government and all these other places. There is an Egyptian billionaire named Naguib, sorry, I am pronouncing that way wrong, Naguib Sawiris, who has volunteered to bankroll a lot of this project. And I have to imagine that there are not the best intentions coming into play for this. I feel like this is just a grab for what little resources Gaza has to be funneled to Egypt, to the West, to leave the Gazans in poverty, to leave the Gazans struggling, to leave them open to yet another cycle of terrorism and attacks. And cynically, that's just where anytime a bunch of billionaires get together to come up with a plan that's going to help poor people, I tend to have a bit of pause.
Yeah.
So forgive me if I can't get behind this development plan, because I can just see it now. Oh, this Egyptian concrete company is going to get a ton of money from Western investors. It's gonna fail like the Gazan docks did, and then those investors are gonna be out a bunch of money. But guess what? It's cool because the people that initially proposed it have all that funds in a Swiss bank account somewhere.
Well, we go that route, there'll be a damn Trump hotel.
But yeah, it will be. At least he's doing something, is what I can say.
No, and I'm not going to.
And again, this is probably the best plan you're going to get. However, I think this plan is completely untenable to the government of Gaza, to Hamas, because it demands their unconditional surrender, and they still have a will to fight. They still have the supplies to fight. They knew they were the ones who initiated the attack. They knew how this was going to play out. They have all of their supplies in these tunnels that they have spent the last decades building. They are not going to be easy to root out. And the only way, Matt, you can get rid of these things is if they do it willingly. And they're not going to, because in their minds, they're not losing. In fact, they are winning in their minds. International support for Israel is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Their plan is working. Governments all over Europe are beginning to recognize Palestine after having years of sidestepping it.
Yeah, but
you had the Italian government send convoy support for the Gaza flotilla. So militarily, I think Hamas is achieving their objectives. The unfortunate and tragic thing is they're achieving all these objectives on the corpses of tens of thousands of Palestinian women, children, non-combatants, the most vulnerable.
And I mean, there's no doubt that, that kind of warfare is going on, that there's civilian shields. But, I mean, is that not a very convenient excuse to just indiscriminately bomb anything that you want? Is, well, there's tunnels underneath it, or, that's what concerns me, is it just... at no point in all of this, unless I'm mistaken and just didn't see it, have I seen anybody say, oops, we bombed that because we thought it was, a weapons cache. Turns out it wasn't. That was our bad.
I don't trust a damn thing Israel says about their combat operations in Gaza.
Right.
No,
See, that's what concerns me.
I think Israel's been proven to lie so frequently that even if the Gazans committed a horrific act, I would need some extraordinary proof to confirm that.
Right.
And not to say the Palestinians haven't been lying too about a lot of things, and honestly, not to say that that Hamas soldiers haven't taken from their own civilian populace to support their operations. Like I said, the flotilla that's supposed to deliver aid to Gaza, how much of that aid do you honestly think is going to go to civilians?
None. Not very few. Very little.
Yeah, and what does get to civilians is would be distributed by Hamas. That being said, should the flotilla have been stopped? Because Israel hasn't been providing any aid to the citizens of Gaza, which, by the way, are presumed to be under Israeli protection. It would be like if the Ku Klux Klan took over the state of Indiana and then we were giving aid to Hoosier families and it wasn't, they were just starving, and the U.S. government would be obligated to provide that. Israel should be obligated to provide for these citizens in Gaza, and I don't think that they're doing the justice for that, because, again, it is difficult to tell who's a combatant, who's a non-combatant. Is this 10-year-old kid that I'm giving a week's worth of food and water to, is he not just going to run back to his father, Hamas soldier, and hand over all the supplies to him?
Right.
You don't know that. It's hard, but you have to make the effort to do something, and I don't see that. I don't see that in any of the media. All I see is hospitals being bombed, churches being destroyed, and for what? My
thing is, nobody can tell me why I should give a damn about the Middle East. I mean, as a place. I have no personal ties to it other than, there's some ancestry there. It's the birthplace of my faith and some of my favorite food. But other than that, like I said, no personal ties to it. Geographically, I don't know what the advantage of it is. I think the Middle East in its entirety could disappear and the United States could still persist without it. And then as far as, there's no groundbreaking policy that comes out of it. There's no, I just don't see, as a Westerner, I don't see what the ties, why the Middle East is of dire importance to us as a place.
Did you see that interview with Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. That's why I'm actually eating hummus, because Tucker said that's what Middle Eastern people do, and so I'm eating hummus. And
part of that interview, Ted Cruz had mentioned that Israel, one of the reasons why he was so pro-Israel is because he was saying, according to the Bible, we have to, and I'm paraphrasing, that we have a duty to protect Israel. According to the Bible,
as a people, That's a people. I just want to clarify that because I said I don't give a damn about it as a place, but as far as people, that's a different story. So please continue.
And he's pulling that from the text of the Old Testament of those who bless Israel will be blessed. And here's the thing about it, right? That he's taken a lot of that and the understanding of that context and at that time period and what has changed, and he's put it into real world, and he's justifying all the killing and all the deaths that's going on by that passage.
Yep.
And he's saying that to me, and a lot of politicians might think this way, and he's saying to us in our face that, hey, the Israels and the Jews, their obligations and their ideology of how they should keep peace and maintain their state is more important than the American people and the way we perceive things. And that's not even what the Bible context is even pointing to, right? We know in the New Testament, because he was quoting from the Old Testament, but we know in the New Testament that Jesus gave us that new command and to love. You don't start blowing up people and say that, hey, this is love, No, that's the commandment that he gave us, And we have stepped away from that because some people are fixated on something that appears in the Bible but go against Jesus' teaching on how we are supposed to live in today's future.
Well, that's a good way to trip up a Protestant for sure, because it's definitely a very Protestant way of looking at things. But 2 questions. You could ask Ted Cruz, A, who are the Israelites right now? He wouldn't be able to answer it. You could also ask him what quantifies, support and blessing Israel. Is it prayers? Is it providing military aid? Is it providing protection? And at what point does that, cease to be something that you would want to do? I mean, what if Israel, complete hypothetical, if they tomorrow kicked out all Christians out of Israel and just went completely like secular government? Do we still support? If they had post-birth abortions was legalized, do Christians still stand with Israel? And Protestants can't give those parameters. So it's when Protestants start to talk about Israel, I get very it's just cherry picked is what it feels like.
Matt, you say Ted Cruz couldn't tell you who an Israelite is. I can tell you who an Israelite is today. It's us. The church is Israel. The church, the new covenant. The church is Israel, not a nation in the Middle East who's occupied by Jews. That is not the case.
Right.
But good luck getting Ted Cruz to say that.
Naming the state of Israel that name is one of the greatest marketing schemes in the world. It has done wonders for those people. That propaganda that they push, that they are the inheritors of the ancient kingdom of Israel, of the Old Testament, is so huge, especially knowing these evangelical circles in the Anglosphere that just lap that up.
We have people in the party right now who really want a good, firm line in the sand statement on this. And I just don't know that it's possible to give one, because you sent me this plan here. It's like you said, Chris, it's better than nothing. But at the same time, would it be more beneficial for the U.S. to try to implement this plan, or step away and walk away and wipe their hands of the situation completely? Because when the U.S. is involved, especially if they've taken a side, that emboldens other countries to do stuff. So if we were to just walk away, would you think that would cool the tension?
No.
You don't think so?
If we just walked away, that would embolden. Israel would be like, oh, okay, there's no one to stop us now. And they would just sweep through Gaza and commit mass destruction.
Starting off this podcast, I didn't have a strong stance because I just don't know. I still don't know. But I'm going to make a stance and say that everything that Israel is doing right now, currently, is wrong. They have to stop the killing so many innocent people, innocent women, children, men that are not even trying to, that they're just trying to take care of their family. They have to stop and find another way, because this is reckless killing. As far as Palestine and particularly Hamas, they are not out of the boat on this one, because they do share some blame. They poked the tiger, right? They poked the bear, and the people within Gaza has to find out who those militants are in Gaza that working for Hamas, and call them out, because they're bringing not only fear but destruction to their city and their homes, and there's displacement. Now, those people that are not part of Hamas, they are innocent, and those are the ones, sadly, that are dying. Hamas, we already know that Hamas has to stop all this senseless attack, especially when they don't even have the power to do so. But right now, the adult in the room, or the biggest kid in the room, I should say, is Israel. So they have the most power, and they need to stop. Now, as far as what we're doing in Trump, the Trump administration, and their take in what's going on in the Middle East, I personally believe that this is of good merit. There, Trump seems like he's trying to do something good, but if he says 7 years for any reason, I'm doing the 180. But peace for 7 years. That's what I mean, because it's in the Bible and Revelations and Antichrist. But anyways, what he's trying to do is bring in peace. I admire that he's trying to do that, and I think it's of good gestures. I think he had some pretty good points. And also trying to bring peace, but it's going to be really hard to bring peace, especially when, we know Israel's end game. We know it. And their end game is control all of Palestine. You can't fool us. You don't fool us. We know exactly what you're trying to do. We understand why you're trying to do it, but don't lie about it, because we know what you're exactly trying to do.
Well, I mean, honestly, not to derail you, but I mean, the ball's kind of in Hamas's court right now, because Netanyahu has agreed to this.
Yeah, they've agreed to it.
Of course, he's agreed. Of course, he's agreed to it. He comes out way better in this. This is a bad deal for Hamas. 100% a bad deal for Hamas.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it isn't, but.
Well, that's the problem with these kind of deals. That is the textbook definition of a bad faith deal. If you know that the deal you present is unconscionable to one of the parties, of course they're going to deny it. That, like, Hamas will deny this deal. And then that will just be used as the excuse to escalate things against Hamas, for that'll give the U.S. green light to get more involved. And it'll just make things worse for the civilians of Palestine.
Yeah,
and Carvell, you said that we know what Israel's plan is. I want to go on record. I've been very harsh on Israel so far, but I do want to stand up for Israel a little bit here, and that is probably Likud's plan, Netanyahu's party, his coalition. That is probably their plan. There are quite a few Israelis who aren't very supportive of Benjamin Netanyahu, who condemn him and his party's actions, who want a more peaceful two-state solution, who want these things, and they aren't. And it's not like a small minority. There are a great number of Israelis who want nothing more than to have that peace. They just aren't in power.
Well, there are, but if you look at the numbers, right? I want to say there's close to 40% who's behind Netanyahu, 100%. I'd say that number, from what I've read, I think it's around 38%. I'm not sure, and there's enough people there that say, the actions that are happening, it's justified. Maybe going a little too far, but they justify it. That's another over 30%. But the amount of people that are completely against it, which is being led by a lot of the families who were victims of the Hamas attack, they're not even pushing like 25% the last time I read that and stuff. So, I mean, there is a lot. I think there's a lot of deception that's going on there. I think a lot of Israelis, they do want peace, and the people, and Chris, yes, you're right. A lot of people want peace. A lot of people don't want a society where they have to, worry about what's going on. And a lot of government, people in the government and Israel and the U.S. are justifying this. I want to walk back what I said earlier. That was actually about that Bible passage. So Ted Cruz said anyone who's going to bless Israel will be blessed, but that's actually not what's said in the Bible. And he's speaking to Abraham. Anyone that blesses you will be blessed, the children, right?
Israel didn't even exist by that point. Chris. Israel was Israel didn't even exist in the Bible till at that point.
Yeah, and you're right. It's anyone who's a descendant. So we're called the descendants of Abraham, right? Because God said that you'll be a father of many nations.
You know who's also a descendant of Abraham? The Muslims. Muslims through Hagar.
Yeah. There we go. I think Ted Cruz needs to go back and read the Bible, like the rest of us, and don't have these assumptions, because it is ridiculous that you are justifying the death of, you said it was half the people that were killed were children. So you're justifying 35,000 children being murdered. I'm not going to say killed, murdered, because you thought you read something in the Bible. That's ridiculous to me. I am completely against the killings that are going on right now in Gaza, especially dealing with children. There needs to be a better solution. I understand, though, why Israel has to feel the need to defend themselves. I do understand. However, the way you're going about it is incorrect.
Everyone is in the wrong and no one is in the wrong. The flotilla is a big thing in the news right now, since Israel just captured it, right? They just stormed the boats, confiscated all the materials, took hostages of like Greta Thunberg and all of the other peace protesters that were there. Do you think that Israel was justified in taking the actions that they did? Do you think that international aid should be stopped to Gaza? Was the flotilla wrong to even try?
They should have sunk it when Greta was on it. No. Obviously, I have my feelings about Greta, but I think in this case she might have been trying to do something pretty cool. So, no, you shouldn't stop aid, which I don't know, and I say that with the caveat, I don't know all the details. I don't know who all was involved in the funding. I don't know what supplies were on that flotilla, but I'm just going to go off the assumption it was food, water, and medical supplies, things like that. You should not stop that, and that's something that I would think that the Christian church here in the West would oppose, because we sneak into countries, Bibles and things that we're not, the contraband we're not supposed to take in, all under the guise of we're doing the right thing and we're supporting people that don't have an option any otherwise. And so, no, I don't think the flotilla should have been stopped. I don't know how that could have been perceived as a threat if you're just taking water and food and medical supplies like that. Like you said, Chris and Carvell, chances are that would have gotten into the hands of civilians anyway, slim to none.
I will say that Israel preventing humanitarian aid from getting to Gaza is itself a violation of the Geneva Convention. Article 23 requires that free passage be granted for humanitarian aid, such as food and medicine intended for civilians, especially children and pregnant women. So That is technically a war crime.
And we are at this weird situation where, the younger people are going back to the church. They're returning to the church en masse. But I don't know how that's going to hold up. Maybe it might be that these pastors that are these Israel pastors are starting to age out, and that younger people just kind of let them fall by the wayside and then replace them with a less pro-Israeli ideology. But this would be a good time for the church in America to stand up and say, this isn't right, and we can't bar aid from getting in.
If we know that there are innocent people in need, why are we going to hinder them? Why are we going to stop them from getting exactly what they need? And that's kind of something I'll stand behind, like, and my Christian, as a Christian Democratic Party, we are called to love. And one of those being called to love is love your enemies. Even no matter how much you don't like them or you hate them, there are innocent people that need help. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the heart of God in the Bible told Abraham, if there were 10 good men in a city full of wicked people, he would not destroy it. He told that when Lot was in the city and he was going to destroy the city. And Abraham was asking him. So this is kind of one of those things where if there are innocent people that exist, you save those innocent people. They don't deserve death. They don't do anything. Children are innocent in all ways. Why? It just makes me sad. I mean, it just makes me sad that we are allowing a country to kill innocent people, and then we're going to justify it because, I don't know, we think it's part of our biblical duty. Well, you got it all wrong. I don't know what it is. Sorry, guys. I'm not, I'm not saying that this is a religious take and, the way Christians perceive or whatever thing is incorrect. But I just think that we need to start understanding how to love better. I don't
think that's a Christian take at all. I think that's just a humanitarian take. I think everyone can get behind that attitude no matter what. But you brought up duty, Carvell. This is something that I'm curious about. Do you think that the U.S. government, knowing Israel's stance beforehand that they were wanting to stop this humanitarian aid, do you think that not just the U.S. but the world community would have an obligation to ensure that those humanitarian supplies got to Gaza, and should have made a show of force? Like I said, the Italians sent a warship to support them, and then Israel threatened it, and they backed off.
Well, it's kind of like what you said earlier, Chris, that Netanyahu and a lot of the right wings or whatever, they're lying. We see that a lot of politics these days, that people can lie and get away with it because as long as they have believers and somebody that says, oh, no, this is actually what happened. So I know the government has been saying that the Israeli government has been saying, no, we've been trying to deliver these packages, or the packages came later, whatever lie that happens. We've seen it and it's happening. And people who are aligned with them, they believe it without any investigation. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, how do you solve this issue?
I'm with Carvell. I mean, I do think that the world has an obligation to step up and support that. And I understand, there's people in America that when they got wind that there was some Gazan refugees coming here, they didn't like the idea of that. I understand why Egypt has concerns about letting them in. I get the issue there. And my thing is that's fair enough. But if you're going to do that, there's some kind of aid you can render to these people. And the very least you could do is support supplies going in, money going in. In this case, not all cases, but in this case, worrying about it falling into the hands of Hamas, I don't think that's a good enough excuse to completely bar what innocent people need to survive this. I was to live, but I mean, I don't know at this point how much of a life it is. It's literally surviving. So yeah, it's kind of depressing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really think about this, but then when you really do sit down and talk and think about this, it kind of gets you messed up. But
I know we're not policy makers, but how would you say that this conflict should be resolved? We said that we kind of like Trump's plan, but not all the way. What is your plan to solve this?
If you're asking me my plan to solve this, it would have to, okay. So my first plan, obviously, and it's the plan that wouldn't work, but it would be to integrate Gaza and Palestine and integrate them into the same country. Since Israel already owns how the Gaza Strip acts, it owns what comes in and comes out, the governmental control, it already owns that, right? Allow some of the Palestinian people into Israeli politics and allow the very opposite too, Israeli inside the Palestinian pride. Integrate people together. That's a solution that I have that wouldn't work, but that's the solution that I have. The second solution that I would have that would work is to, and if we're gonna like save lives, right? It would be to create a wall or some sort, right?
Are you saying build the wall?
I'm saying build the wall. I hate that I have to say it like that. I hate to say it, but you gotta. I mean, don't they already have a wall?
Yeah, I'm pretty
there?
sure. Well, the West Bank has a huge wall.
Okay.
I would presume that Gaza has one as well, which is why
I think they have fencing. I don't think it's like a wall, like kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah, create a wall of some sort where and allow the Palestinians to exercise their own government. However, I don't know what that would look like and how that would work.
Is this an independent nation situation, or is this an autonomous region of Israel situation?
Goodness, that's a good question right there. I would say I would want it to work as an independent nation, but that'd be hard because that means that Gaza could have anybody they wanted to come in, and anybody they wanted can do whatever they want, and no matter how much they disliked Israel, but at the same time, you know, you got a lot of good neighbors near the Mediterranean Sea. So I don't know. Like, honestly, this is one of the reasons why I'm not, the president right now, because I don't need to have the answers, right? I could learn and then figure out what is the best solution.
I don't think anybody expects you to have the answers like we've reiterated several times. It's just, man, it's just so complex. This is a since the beginning of time problem. I have two options like you. So the first would be to relocate those people temporarily. I think it's like 2 million people. I mean, logistically wise, that's not unfeasible. As it stands, the area is unlivable. Most of the housing's been destroyed. The critical infrastructure is decimated. You'd have to literally resettle those people, go in, clean up and start over. And when I say clean up, I mean destroy all the terrorist infrastructure that's been constructed, build it back. And like Trump's plan, you'd have to form some kind of like Palestinian board, some new, for now, kind of an in-place system of government, and then you can move them back once the land's livable again. Other option, and I know this might make some people mad, like within the party, but I think it would just be America just wiping our hands clean of it and leaving it alone. And our involvement at this point hasn't produced fruit. I don't know that it's going to. And maybe America completely walking out of a situation that we've always been involved in monetarily, militarily, if we completely leave it alone, maybe it would get better. I don't know. I think in the end of it, either way that you go, It's going to result in the United States either having to maybe not completely walking away from their support of Israel, but, having a serious come to Jesus on what that looks like, what that support looks like.
I think my solution is a bit more long-term than this. Obviously, for the immediate issue of the conflict, it's an immediate ceasefire on both sides. Allow humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza while the ceasefire is ongoing, and then you open dialogue for talks, whether that's, again, bringing Hamas and, Israeli representatives to Dayton or wherever to, like they did for Yugoslavia, to discuss things and hash things out between themselves. That would probably be the immediate thing for me. Long term, I think that America should have a policy of, Republicans like to say, starve the beast on welfare and things like that. Who's the biggest single recipient of U.S. welfare? It's the state of Israel. Matt said they got $25 billion. Guess what? That's the budget of NASA, which we are cutting right now.
I think it was 18, but who's counting at this point?
Right. Well, and again, there's the incidentals and everything. Israel is a modernized Western nation. They are a first world nation. They have thriving native industries that get exported all throughout the world. They are not in need of aid by any other Western nation. Israel is a terrible ally. They have done nothing but draw America into conflict after conflict in the Middle East. They have attacked American warships for no good reason other than to create a false flag to draw them into fighting for Israel. I do not think it is in America's best interest to fight for the benefit of Israel. I don't think it's in America's best interest to fund Israel. And in fact, it's not in the best interest of Israel for us to fund Israel, because that emboldens them to have a more aggressive stance with their neighbors. If Israel had to actually budget their own stuff, they might be more willing to be more conciliatory to their neighboring countries. Now, obviously, if a situation like the 48 war or the 6 Days War happens, America's obviously going to step in and defend them because that's unprovoked. Now, you can make the argument that Hamas's attack on Israel was unprovoked, but due to the history that these two have had, can we really say who's provoked who? Gazans are basically living in a concentration camp.
An open-air prison is what I've heard it called.
Israel would do better with less, in my opinion. And America needs to commit to that. Now, why doesn't America do this? I don't know. Maybe it's in the Epstein files or something. But, we need to do something. If we're going to stick our noses out into this Middle Eastern conflict, we need a solution that benefits both the Palestinians and the Israelis for the long term, and not just throw money into something in a development plan that will probably end up getting bombed in 20 years anyway. So what's the point? We have to look for longer term solutions with Israel. On that note, I know all three of us have had some pretty big opinionated views on this subject. What stance do you think that the party should have? And what do you think the stance the American Solidarity Party will have in regards to this conflict?
It's obviously pro-life. I think the majority of our members on Facebook have been vocal and have spoken. Does not sound like Israel has high support. And it being a Trump policy, I don't know that this plan is going to be popular within the ASP, but it is better than nothing. And I think at this point, members of the ASP are going to want to do anything that it takes to stop the bloodshed.
I would agree with that. I think the ASP is definitely going to want to stop the bloodshed, whether it be through peaceful means or just we're going to want to stop the bloodshed. So that's definitely, I think all of our opinions and kind of what we iterated was going to be the same stance as the ASP.
I'm going to agree with both of you, but I'm going to go a step further, and I am going to say what I expect the party is going to say. I think that we will see a statement at some point in the future. I think that they are going to be very supportive of the Palestinian people. I think that they're not going to be as critical on in the state of Israel as we have been. What I expect the party to do is to make a big poetic statement, honoring life, and that doesn't really, it's more pontifical. It doesn't give any real solutions. What I would like for the party to present realistic solutions for ending the Gaza conflict in their statement, and plans that they think ought to be implemented. Because I think the left, the right, everyone can agree the conflict needs to end. But the devil's in the details. And I would like to see what details the official party comes up with, because we need that structure in the party. We can't just be a party of ideas, we need to be a party of action. And this would be a really good place to show that we are a party of action. And I would encourage those in leadership in the party to take that step. And with that, I think we can conclude this. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully there will be quite a bit of discussion on this topic. It is a very important topic. It has been going on 2 years, which is 2 years too long for it to have gone on. If you like or hate our opinions, want to hear more from us, please subscribe, leave a comment. We love to see your interaction. And with that, thank you again for listening. This is Chris.
I'm Carvell.
And I'm Matt.
And thank you again. God bless. We'll see you until next time.